I think we can give people a couple minutes to get in. We're going to give everyone a few minutes to join the webinar, and we'll start in just a few minutes. Okay, I think we'll get started. So, okay, so I'm Kim Dietzel, and I am one of the board members on the DEI committee for Michigan ASLA. And this is part of the Diverse Perspective series, our webinar to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. And today our guest is Paige O'Keefe. The Diverse Perspective series highlights the work and careers of landscape architects, identifying as people of color, LGBTQ plus women, and other minority groups within the profession. So if anyone you know or anyone else is interested on being part of a webinar, you can contact us. And just to let you know, these will be available later on YouTube. So the Michigan Chapter ASLA Foundation is part of the Michigan ASLA, and we started last summer. And we promote diversity, equity, inclusion, as I said, and Paige O'Keefe is our speaker. So she currently works at MKSK in downtown Detroit, and which provides landscape architecture and urban planning services throughout the Midwest. And she is a recent 2021 and 20 grad with a bachelor's of landscape architecture and a master's of environmental design. During her final year, Paige served as the Michigan State University chapter president and is a member of both the Michigan ASLA and SPDC, DEI committee. Her research and design interests focus on resilience at a community scale and creating equitable design solutions. So this is our guest Paige, and I'm going to put it over to her.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kim. I'm really happy to be here. And I will just go ahead and share my screen. Yeah, so like said, my name's Paige O'Keefe, and just wanted to give you guys a little bit of some context of who I am. I'm originally from Kalamazoo, Michigan, and that's also where I went to high school and found landscape architecture through just a class called Senior Seminar. And it was a really great opportunity because it was just a chance to find a mentor in a career field that you were interested in. So I chose OCBA, which is their Parchment office. And that ultimately is what led me to MSU and landscape architecture. Got both my bachelor's and master's from MSU and just recently graduated. And currently working at MKSK as a landscape designer. But I've also held internships at both PEA Group in the Brighton office and Beardus Design Group in Kalamazoo and Grand Rapids, and also teaching assistant and graduate research assistantships through Michigan State University. And probably some of my favorite involvements have been being with the student chapter of ASLA at MSU, also being nominated as Landscape Architecture Foundation Olmsted Scholar, and being in the DEI committees within the past year really opened my eyes to what DEI is and how it can ultimately strengthen the voices of those students and emerging professionals within landscape architecture. So today I'm going to be giving a little bit of a rundown on my senior year project that we had, which was the City of E-Courses Downtown Corridor and Riverfront Revitalization. This was through LA 817 or the Environmental Studio at MSU. And although they couldn't make it, Jimmy and Victor played integral parts in the design of this project. And they did a great job of collaborating and ultimately coming to the final product. So a little bit about the City of Ecorse. It's located in Southeast Michigan, which is within Wayne County. And it's also about 12 miles southwest of the city of Detroit, if you're familiar with the region. And colloquially, it was deemed as a downriver community, or specifically to the Detroit River, along with other suburban communities. And considering all of the dimensions within resilience and community resilience, this project highlights the most frequently used indicators and variables found within currently practiced community resilience indexes. And this one specifically highlighted the City of Ecorse as the most vulnerable within the Southeast region of Michigan, facing issues of post-industrialism, blighted neighborhoods, and a vast amount of vacant lots that can be found throughout our site. And that's ultimately why we chose this area as our project site. And unfortunately, it has very high crime rates, loss of vacant households, and also just lacks sustainable plans for the future. So a little bit of the history on the City of Ecorse, very similar to Detroit. It began with the Native Americans and was then eventually taken over by French settlers. And throughout the 18 and 1900s, it eventually became an industrial shipping center due to the resource of the Detroit River. The city faced an extreme amount of population decline as the population declined due to deindustrialization, and it currently sits at around 10,000 with a projected continuous decline with the current conditions. And thus we wanted to really take this site and use it to its potential for hopefully population growth in the future. So from looking at the history of the city, we wanted to adopt a concept of self-adaptation through resiliency. And ultimately, we wanted to focus on the environmental aspects, social, economics, and the cultural resilience that it contains, since it holds such strong history in steel, shipping, automobile, and railroad industries. However, we know that the city ultimately holds a lot of potential for amenities such as open event spaces for festivals and concerts in the summer, community or farmers markets, urban food courts, and outdoor restaurants, as we've seen within the past year, and more potential for retail and commercial spaces as well through the downtown corridor along Jefferson Avenue. And we began our site inventory and analysis by looking specifically at the wetlands and floodplains and its relationship to the Detroit River. There's currently a lot of turbid water and a lot of opportunities for flooding, as we've seen again within the past year. And when looking at zoning, the highest percentages were in single family residential and also industrial, which makes sense given its history. However, this area does show strong potential to become diverse, resilient, and vibrant in its downtown communities. And here we wanted to create a connectivity map focusing on the regional bike network and how it connected outwards towards other parts of Detroit and Southeast Michigan. And there are a lot of opportunities for more biking networks, which is really prevalent within downtown and midtown. Also, there's a direct lack of access to local grocery stores. And unless you're within the 0.25 mile radius of a grocery store, then it is much more difficult to gain access to them. And there ultimately is a lot of potential here to increase the condition of roads and sidewalks and bike lanes and utilizing railroads as well. So again, at its core, the city is heavily impacted by the Detroit River, and its ecosystems have been impacted heavily and damaged through both the buildup and the downfall of the industrial era. However, it is becoming restored through the wildlife refuge, which is located directly along the river and along eCourse as well. And the main goal of it is ultimately to provide safe living areas and protect the habitats that are existing within the fish and wildlife ecosystems. So we then further analyze our site by taking the SWOT approach, which is looking at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And one of the ones that I really wanted to highlight was the John D. Dingle Park, which holds both cultural and environmental significance, as it provides direct access for the residents of eCourse. It also provides views towards Mud Island and the river. And it also improves connectivity to west of Jefferson Avenue, which is where the majority of single family residents are located. And ultimately would just provide a great space for families and young professionals looking to move towards the area. So when looking at the design goals, there were a lot that we had, but ultimately narrowed them down to these three. The first being placemaking and recreation. This was really important because we wanted to create a diverse and vibrant mixed-use commercial strip along Jefferson Avenue. It holds a lot of potential, again, as it relates back to John Dingle Park and the river. And second of all, we really wanted to hit home on the sense of identity throughout the neighborhoods of eCourse, as currently they're very separated and lack connectivity and identity. So this was also caused by blight. And we found that one of the solutions we could implement would be a network of green pocket parks that would give each block and each neighborhood a sense of pride in their community and also provide recreation. And finally, our last goal was pedestrian and non-motorized connectivity, as it was lacking extremely, mainly due to Jefferson Road, which spans over 80 feet wide. And this is a highly trafficked arterial road throughout and goes up past the city of Ecorse. And this would provide a lot of opportunities for non-motorized transportation as well. So next, we really wanted to look at specific amenities or design implementations that we could propose for this project. So some of them being intersection improvements, crosswalks for pedestrians. One of the ones that I worked specifically on was the urban plaza, which I really wanted to focus on right at the core of our design. And this was right at the intersection of Southfield Road and Jefferson, as this would provide a lot of event spaces and connect back to the park and the river as well. So here is our master plan that we created. We really wanted to highlight the potential that the site held while also keeping the integrity of the city. So again, the urban plaza, creating a terraced amphitheater right along the Riverwalk, and then creating mixed use development and pedestrian only corridors throughout the major buildings along the corridor as well. Also, you can see those neighborhood pocket parks and skate parks interspersed throughout the single family residential areas, and really taking back some of what used to be those industrial usage zones and are now being used in this design for more recreation. So finally, I just wanted to highlight some of the perspective renderings that we did for this project. This one kind of highlights that urban recreational plaza. As I was mentioning, this would host a variety of gatherings and events and really just bring people together at the heart of the city. And these were some that we wanted to highlight. Dingle Park, the amenities and boardwalks, including boardwalk improvements, additional shade trees and native plantings along the river just to create a better environment for those using that space. Also including an open lawn and art gallery and a riverfront amphitheater as well. This was something that we were really excited to propose in our design. Some skate parks, as I was mentioning, the green network of pocket parks and providing that sense of identity for those in the community. This would bring people together not only recreationally, but also just as a way for the community to gather. And this was designed by Victor. And some of these were designed by Jimmy as well. And he included a post-pandemic memorial park to honor those whose lives have been lost throughout this past pandemic, which I thought was really great. And also community gardens for education purposes and getting outside, as well as a multi-use riverfront pavilion, which would host a variety of events as well. And finally, to conclude on the third design goal of pedestrian and non-motorized connectivity, this was an example of one of the pedestrian corridors that would be implemented throughout the mixed-use development. And this would highlight some of the restaurants and local businesses and really create that intimate space for pedestrians that's separated from vehicular traffic along Jefferson and Southfield. And yeah, just wanted to conclude by saying thank you to everyone who attended. And if there's any questions or comments, feel free. But thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for presenting. That was very interesting. It's great to see all the cool designs. And if you make me host, we can see if we have any questions in the chat. If any of the participants have questions, you can jump in now. So I guess we will start off with when you started your community resilience.
Yes.
Where did you find those resources, and do you agree with what those resources are in bringing it to a more resilient, sustainable community?
Wait, sorry, could you explain what you mean by the resources?
Oh, sorry. In the I think in the beginning of your presentation, you spoke a little bit about how you chose eCourse because it had a lot of opportunities to be a community of resilience.
Yeah.
And there were resources that you thought were valuable within that.
Yeah, so I actually used a variety of literature reviews that I found through journals and articles, and kind of looking at what they had used as factors or specific indicators of resilience, and then creating my own index based on those, and applying that to this specific site really helped in terms of environmental, social, economic, and cultural. And they kind of provided baselines or thresholds of what a resilient or sustainable community would have. And from then we could assess our own design based on those.
Nice. Were you able to get any feedback from the city of eCourse themselves?
No, we actually didn't follow through with any of the community members, but I think this, if any future students or professionals are utilizing this site, I think that they could definitely do that.
That would be great. I mean,
Yeah,
this seems like a really well done understanding of eCourse, and it could be interesting, you know, for the students and children and people that live in the city. I think it's a great way to really evaluate and take stock of what they have and what they can do. I know you touched a little bit on it before, but how do you think your history and experience of getting into landscape architecture like shaped your way of design?
yeah, I think the way in which everybody finds landscape architecture is very unique. And I started just with a mentorship from a class in high school. And I think from that point on, I realized that I wanted to go more into the commercial side as opposed to municipal or residential. And I knew that I wanted to work on large community-wide spaces. I think that's probably played a role as I've gone through both school and my professional career as well.
If you could talk to yourself when you first got into landscape architecture, is there any advice you would give yourself?
Ooh, that's a good question. I feel like just trying to stay open-minded as you go through, and you're still trying to figure out what exactly your strengths and weaknesses and what interests you the most. I would say to anybody starting to just stay dedicated and open-minded to the process of design and how opportunities will come to you. But yeah, that's probably what I'd say.
Nice. That's a great answer. And then I guess, is there anything that you think you would like to have an impact on in the sense of diversity, equity, and inclusion as a landscape architect?
Yeah, I think just being able to impact hopefully future generations through whether it's just a single project and someone's inspired by going to that place, or directly talking and going into communities that might not necessarily know about landscape architecture. I'd love to be able to be more involved in my local communities, whether it's through like volunteering or through work professionally, through ASLA, any of those routes probably.
That's wonderful. It looks like we don't have any other questions. So I guess thank you so much for your time. And
Thank you.
I hope that this was as impactful on everyone, and that that we can keep doing this webinar so we get more wonderful people like you spotlighted and more people interested in landscape architecture. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kim. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Please stop recording.